Why do babies cry when they hear other babies crying? One of the most familiar scenes in a nursery or daycare is a kind of emotional chain reaction. One baby begins to cry, and within moments, others follow. This phenomenon has puzzled parents, caregivers, and scientists alike for decades. Far from being a simple coincidence or a response to noise, the tendency of babies to cry when they hear another infant cry is a complex behavior rooted in neuroscience, evolutionary biology, and the early development of empathy. Understanding why this happens offers profound insight into the human capacity for social connection, which begins far earlier than most people realize. The most widely accepted explanation for this behavior is a concept known as emotional contagion. Emotional contagion refers to the tendency to automatically mimic and synchronize with the emotional expressions of others. In adults, this shows up as a smile spreading across the face when someone else smiles, or a feeling of sadness when watching a friend cry. In newborns, the same mechanism operates, but in a more raw and unfiltered way. When a baby hears the cry of another infant, it triggers an automatic emotional and physiological response, causing the listening baby to cry as well. Research has confirmed that this response is not simply a reaction to any loud or startling noise. In a landmark study conducted in the 1980s, researchers found that newborns cried significantly more in response to recordings of other infant cries than to recordings of equally loud non-cry sounds, such as white noise or the cry of a chimpanzee. This suggests that the response is specifically tuned to the human infant cry, indicating that babies are hardwired from birth to respond to the distress signals of their own kind. More recent studies have reinforced this finding, showing that even newborns just a few hours old display this reactive crying behavior. From an evolutionary standpoint, this makes perfect sense. Humans are deeply social creatures, and much of our survival throughout evolutionary history has depended on our ability to detect and respond to the emotional states of those around us. For infants, who are entirely helpless and dependent on caregivers, the ability to signal distress loudly and effectively is a matter of survival. When one baby cries and others follow, the resulting noise is more likely to attract the attention of nearby adults, thereby increasing the chances that all distressed infants will receive care. In this sense, reactive crying can be seen as an early, primitive form of social alarm signaling. Another dimension of this behavior involves the early development of empathy. Empathies, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, is often thought of as a sophisticated cognitive skill that develops over years of social experience. However, the evidence suggests that its roots are present from the very beginning of life. When babies cry in response to other babies crying, they are not simply mimicking a sound, they appear to be genuinely responding to perceived distress. This is a primitive form of empathic resonance, a neurological echo of another being's emotional state. The role of mirror neurons is particularly relevant here. Mirror neurons are brain cells that fire both when an individual performs an action and when that individual observes another performing the same action. First discovered in primates, these neurons are believed to form the neural basis of imitation, empathy, and social understanding in humans as well. Although direct evidence of mirror neuron activity in newborns is difficult to obtain, many neuroscientists believe that a mirror neuron-like system is active from birth, explaining why infants so readily imitate facial expressions and respond emotionally to the cues of those around them. It is also worth noting that not all infants respond in exactly the same way to hearing another baby cry. Temperament, the level of background noise, whether the infant is already tired or hungry, and even the acoustic features of the cry being heard can all influence the likelihood and intensity of a reactive cry. Some babies are more sensitive and reactive than others, a difference that may reflect individual variations in nervous system sensitivity and early emotional regulation. Interestingly, babies do not cry as intensely in response to recordings of their own cries as they do to recordings of other infants. This is a subtle but important distinction, suggesting that the behavior is not merely a reflexive response to the sound itself, but involves some rudimentary form of self-other distinction. Even at just a few days old, infants appear capable of recognizing on some level that the cry they are hearing does not belong to them. This has significant implications for our understanding of infant cognition. For much of the 20th century, newborns were considered to be largely passive, undifferentiated beings with minimal perceptual or social awareness. The discovery of behaviors like reactive crying has fundamentally challenged this view. Infants, it turns out, arrive in the world already equipped with a remarkable set of social tools that allow them to engage with and respond to the emotional lives of others. In conclusion, the reason babies cry when they hear other babies crying is not simple or accidental. It reflects a sophisticated interplay of emotional contagion, evolutionary instinct, emerging empathy, and early neurological programming. From the very first moments of life, humans are wired for connection, wired to feel what others feel, to respond to distress, and to participate in the shared emotional fabric of social life. The tiny, tearful chorus of a nursery is, in its own way, one of the earliest expressions of our deepest humanity.